As part of our month-long recognition, we are having a conversation with Lieutenant Christopher Crazybull and Tassaniki Crazybull. First off, I know there's a lot of kind of confusion with the terminology. Some people call it Native American History Month, some people call it American Indian History Month, some people use Indian. What is the preferred nomenclature?
I think Indian is most common, but we're moving toward American Indian, Native American. First Nations is common in Canada. Of course, we want to be recognized as the specific area that we're from. There are over 560 federally recognized tribes, so it's really difficult for every single person to know, oh, you're this specific thing, and I recognize that about you. So I'm comfortable. I typically say Native or Indigenous, and a lot of the different groups that work on our behalf use American Indian or Native American. So I think there's just a lot of different ways that you can reference it.
There's been a lot of history of trouble between the American government and Native tribes throughout the country. Can you talk to a little bit of some of the struggles that Native Americans have had to go through?
I think one of the things that is difficult when you start talking about Native people is there is so much that has been done to us. Once the land started being taken away, that is, I think, certainly one of the major things that forced change for Native people. Because we were no longer allowed to move about as we had been used to doing. Putting people on reservations changed everything. Assimilation, killing the culture, removal of children from their families, forcing them to send to boarding school. These things happened for decades. And reservations ended up today, teeny tiny squares of land, whereas once, we occupied millions of acres of land. And through a wide variety of wars, a wide variety of massacres, you end up with people living in really terrible situations. The food, the diet of Native people changed drastically. My husband is a big fan of fry bread. I'm sure that's a common thing. If you know about Native people, you probably know about fry bread. It's literally fried bread. It is flour, sugar, and water, not things that we had access to freely before colonizers came.
Through a little bit of my own research, I thought it was kind of interesting. Congress didn't pass the Indian Citizenship Act until 1924. But during World War I, more than 12,000 American Indian soldiers, over 50% of which volunteered to fight, went to war to defend their nation, a nation that they weren't technically citizens of. Why do you think it is that American Indians are willing to have such a history of fighting for the United States when the United States doesn't necessarily fight for them?
If I could throw something here, I think that we wouldn't just isolate that to American Indians. We'd also say the Japanese from World War II that were placed in internment camps. A lot of them still wanted to fight for the United States government. Blacks in the Civil War wanted to fight for the United States government. A lot of people have a loyalty to defend their life and their way of life and their family, and what they know against what they would see as a foreign oppressor or foreign aggression. So in this particular case, I think that a lot of indigenous and non-indigenous but minority people felt that drive to have that service for their country.
I think we definitely have that pull in ourselves to defend the land, to defend our country, because it is our country.
Kind of staying on the military topic, historically American Indians have the highest record of military service per capita compared to any ethnic group in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
American Indians do have the highest record of military service per capita when you compare us to other ethnic groups. I think there's a wide variety of reasons for that. Certainly family tradition, because so many people served, our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents.
My great-grandfather was a Marine, my father was in the Army.
My grandpa served in World War II, and I have an uncle that served in Vietnam. I think that on one side, it's familial. It's still a feeling of protecting our land and doing what our grandparents and maybe our parents did. And on the other hand, you have very practical reasons for joining the military. You do get training. You do learn a vocation. You have the possibility of getting your bachelor's degree, your master's degree. You have the possibility of, there's a wide variety of things that the military can prepare you for. And because, reservations have extremely high poverty rates. I mean, you're talking 60, 70, 80% unemployment. And the military is a job. It is a guaranteed job. It is a job that you can then leave and take your training and go do something else. You do have to look at the practical side of that, and that we are serving not only out of, a sense of duty, a sense of honor, a sense of continuing our family tradition, but out of that sense of this is going to get me job training that I simply cannot afford on my own.
I kind of wanted to circle back to the topic of the Native American Citizenship Act and then the Voting Rights Act of 1965.
I think that the Citizenship Act is interesting because we were here first. We were here when the colonizers arrived, and they decided, we're going to make a country and we're not including you.
So my father, for example, was not born a United States citizen.
My grandparents were not, when they were born, they were not citizens. And when the Citizenship Act passed, it was not, the rights were not just fully, now everyone's a citizen of the United States. And so it took another, 40 years for that to get, for lack of a better phrase, for that to get straightened out.
So it was 1965 when finally all natives were allowed to vote.
On December 19th, 2009, President Barack Obama signed the Native American Apology Resolution into law. Do you see this kind of as a first step towards healing, or how do you see this?
I don't know if it's a first step. I think that there's a lot of things that sometimes it feels like there's just so much stuff that needs to be done.
I think that diplomatically, it seems like a very genuinely thoughtful gesture. But I think something that would be more practical would be something along the lines of maybe not making American Indian Studies an elective, but mandatory.
Washington State did recently mandate that Native history is required to be taught in schools. That's a great first step. Every state should do this. There's not only history with us, but we are still here, and we still have a lot of issues to deal with. For National Native American Heritage Month, I think one thing people can do, first of all, is think about where you lived, where you grew up, the state where you're from, the city where you're from, and do a quick internet search and find out what tribes are near you. I guarantee you're gonna find somebody. So I think that's a good first step, is to, wherever you're from, get on the internet and find out what tribes are near your hometown or the place that you're living right now.
So I appreciate you guys speaking with me, for taking some time out of your day to share your knowledge and experiences with us. Is there anything you guys want to say before we go?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak and to give more people more information about who we are.